Hi, welcome back to a series, Storytelling for Nonprofits. I'm Arturo, a designer and educator at Canva. Did you know there's a science to knowing how to tell stories that connect with your audience? In this episode, we'll take a look at both the art and the science of storytelling, and we're going to explore two interesting studies that show why powerful stories can move your audience to take action. We've always used stories to pass down wisdom throughout history. It's an art that we've perfected over the millennia. Our ancestors would sit around the fire and share stories of their daily hunt, for example. And it's by sharing these stories that people in the tribe would learn how to survive and not get eaten by big animals. And still today, we engage with stories all the time. Jonathan Gottschall, who's an author and storytelling academic, said that we practically live in stories all day long. And we dream in stories all night long. Stories are how we communicate, how we connect with each other, how we learn, how we think. We actually engage in storytelling more often than we might think. Whenever we meet with friends or family, as much as 65% of our conversation is actually made up of personal stories and gossip. So stories are great tools for passing down information because they make it easy for others to remember this information. But stories are not only good for sharing information, they can also change our behavior. And many studies have looked into how stories affect how we act. So let's take a look at the science of storytelling. There are two interesting studies that show how powerful stories can be. The first one is a study by Adam Grant, a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He studied a group of fundraisers who worked at the university call center. And a bit like nonprofit fundraisers, these individuals reach out to alumni to ask for donations. And in between shifts of phone calls, this group of fundraisers were given a 10-minute break to meet a student who directly benefited from the donations that they brought in. The student told them the story of how the scholarship that he'd received had basically changed his life. And a month after the experiment, researchers found that even though the fundraisers were using the same script for their phone calls, they were basically spending 142% more time on the phone, and they collected 171% more revenue. So the script hadn't changed, but what had changed was the fundraisers' motivation to do more and make a difference in people's lives, even though they weren't aware of it. So this is just an amazing example of how hearing personal stories can actually change how we act. The second study is from Princeton University, and it shows how stories literally change the chemistry of our brains. What the study showed is that when we hear a story, our brain activity essentially mirrors the brain activity of the person who's telling us the story, with just a few seconds delay. So if a story includes details about movement, say someone is running, the motor cortex of our brain will light up as if we were the ones running. And the same thing happens with all our other senses too. And if you think about it, it's kind of what we experience when we go to the movies. When we're watching a character fighting for their life on the movie screen, we feel their fear and anxiety as if we were the ones being attacked, or their relief when they escape their enemy. And this happens because stories activate what is known as mirror neurons. When we're listening to a good story, it's almost like we're experiencing it ourselves in our bodies. And this is what we call empathy. Now, what does this mean for nonprofits? Well, this is incredibly important for nonprofits because nonprofits are in a way in the business of storytelling. Nonprofits have all the raw material for powerful stories right at their fingertips. Stories of perseverance, hope, hardships, new beginnings, change, and big ideas. So it's important to learn how to use all of these ingredients and turn them into powerful stories, so you can get people to connect with them emotionally and you can also move them to action. I hope you enjoy learning about the art and science of storytelling, and that you also have a better understanding of why stories can help your nonprofit make a difference. To help you put your learning into practice, we've created a workbook with plenty of resources to get you started on your storytelling journey. To access your copy, simply scan this QR code or click the link in the episode description. Make sure you don't miss the next episode where we'll look at the 4 things you need to create your story, including a look at the hero's journey and how every story fits into this structure.